I want to share with you the 4 stages of competency, or also known as the 4 stages of learning any new skill. Doesn't matter if you're trying to squat better, doesn't matter if you're trying to get better with your emotional intelligence or live more consciously, whatever the skill is, we are going to pass through these 4 stages. Hopefully, we'll pass through these 4 stages. If you are improving and you are constantly improving, then you are passing through these 4 stages. So the 4 stages are unconscious incompetence, conscious incompetence, conscious competence, and unconscious competence. I know it sounds crazy, they all sound the same, whatever. But let's dig in. Unconscious incompetence. I don't know what I don't know, right? This is one of the most important ones. This is recognition and this is acceptance. We need to figure out what we suck at. We need to not be in denial. We need to accept that we suck at it and that we want to improve at it. So here we have to have a large sense of self-awareness. We have to be honest with ourselves. We have to be wanting to improve. And we ultimately have to accept that this is our deficit. This is our incompetence and we want to get better. Until we accept it, right? If we stay in a stage of denial or we're evading it, we're never even going to move into this phase. So we have to recognize that there is a problem. We have to recognize that there is something we want to get better at. Then we can go towards conscious incompetence. We are now conscious of our issues, of our incompetence, and the problems we want to solve. And here we can start exploring, what do I need to do? Let's look at all the mistakes we've made in the past. What can we learn from them? If it's technique, why do I keep shifting? Why do I keep learning leaning forward in the squat? What is the cause? What can I do better, right? And if we're not trying to get better in any of these things, if we're conscious of a problem, but we aren't trying to get better, then that's just willful ignorance, right? So you might have gotten past denial, but you get to here and you're like, well, whatever, I don't really care. It's not a big deal. I'm just going to ignore it. Then you're kind of being apathetic and that's destructive in nature. So in these 2 phases, these are the values that you need to have to be effective. These are the positive values, and there's the antithesis to each of them, okay? So we want to have self-awareness, self-honesty, self-improvement, self-acceptance, self-exploration, or also seeking help from others, and self-care and self-love. You want to have all of these throughout here, whether you are practicing them unconsciously or whether you are conscious of your incompetence and you are seeking to use them more effectively to get better. These are things that we want to have, okay? Opposites are evasion, cognitive bias, willful ignorance, denial, apathy, okay, nihilism, self-destructiveness. Like you might be conscious, you might have self-acceptance and be conscious of something that you know you need to get better at, and then you sit there and you're like, you know what? Because you realize it's going to be hard to implement the things that you need to do to get better. And it's like, I don't really want to do it. It sounds tough. I don't want to do all this exploration, or I don't want to ask anyone for help. Well, you know what? It's not really a priority to you. You don't really care. You're choosing the apathetic road, and that is self-destruction, or at the very least, stagnation. Okay? It is not going to move you on to the next phase. So we need these values to move to the next phase. And then the next phase is conscious competence, okay? So where everything is conscious, we finally, through self-exploration and through seeking help, we figured out what we need to do to get better, okay? We know the steps we need to take, but it's difficult to do the steps. So we have to consciously put in a lot of effort and concentration and really focus to do these things. This could be if you're learning how to squat. You really have to focus on keeping tall and engaging your lats and bracing hard and rooting your feet and keeping the balance on your whole foot and, putting the tension where you need to put it. Like you need to think about all these things, and it takes a lot of conscious effort. It's tiring. You might need a coach to keep yelling your cues at you, right? You need that repetition to happen, okay? That is your conscious competence. You are practicing what we need, what we learned here. We are putting it into practice, okay? I know, I grow, it's starting to show, Okay, so it starts getting better. And as you do this more and more, repetition is the mother of all skill. Okay, you put in your reps and you do this consistently, right? Consistency is one of the biggest aspects for success, one of the biggest, most important parts for success. Okay, then we'll start to shift here. And this competence will become an unconscious endeavor. You'll start doing it naturally. It will become second nature. So if you squat perfectly 100 times, well, it's going to get drilled into your brain, right? So that becomes, I simply properly go. You're just doing this shit naturally, right? It doesn't matter if we're talking about being aware of our emotions. You know, if you're a highly reactive person and you get angry very easily, or you get sad very easily, or you jump to negative conclusions, you know, if we learn all these things here, then by the time we get here, it's like, okay, I just need to take a deep breath. I need to think before I react, okay? And then next thing you know, this person does this for a long time, and it becomes unconscious. And then they stop becoming reactive, right? Just like with the squat. They practice that technique over and over and over, and then next thing you know, they don't need that coach to say the cues because, boom, they got it. It's locked in. It's a part of their movement pattern. It becomes natural with it, okay? So we start off with this, I don't know what I don't know. And then it's I know what I don't know, and we have to figure out where to get better. And then here, I know, I do what I need to do to get better, so I grow, and it's starting to show the consistency. Boom. And then I simply properly go. The values here that we need to keep this part in check, to keep this part moving, is we need to have self-esteem, self-accountability, self-responsibility, self-direction, self-determination, and self-reliance, okay? Self-esteem is kind of a really big one here. Well, it's always a big one no matter what, but in this process, in this model, self-esteem is so huge because self-esteem is your confidence in your competence, right? You have to be confident that the things that you are practicing are going to come into fruition, that there's going to be some benefit to the effort you're putting in, right? Confidence in your competence. That's one of the things that self-esteem is. And as you keep practicing being competent in this and it starts moving towards that unconscious competence, your self-esteem will also grow because that confidence in your competence is becoming reinforced. Okay? So these values are what we need to ensure that this flows nicely. And then the things that go against this, you know, are being dependent on others. Like, you need to be self-reliant. You need to accept that only you can do this work for you to get better. The victim mentality, just sitting there and hating on it and blaming others, playing the blame game, or having some entitlement, expecting other people to do things for you. Narcissism, okay, self-loathing. Like the narcissism and self-loathing, like if you don't put your self-esteem into practice, then you're just gonna feel shittier about yourself. The only way you can build and practice self-esteem is to practice building your self-esteem, right? So we get through here. Now you've completed this task or this aspect of the skill, and you have accomplished some unconscious competence. You are good at this shit. And now what happens is all that brain power that you were using here, like you're squatting and you're putting all this effort thinking about all these cues, trying to do it perfectly, and now you're doing all those cues without even thinking. Boom. Now we can move on to the next skill. Now we can add. Now we can level up. Now we can focus on what we need to do even better. Maybe if you're squatting, it's the timing of your squat. Maybe if you're talking about emotional intelligence, the first aspect was really focusing on your own emotional intelligence and not being reactive. And now you're good at that. Now we can move to the next phase and you can start focusing on trying to analyze how other people are feeling and how can you help them, right? So the important thing is that we move through all of these phases and we keep recycling, we keep leveling up. That's all that it is, and we are smiling through every step of the way because that's what it's all about. That's why Sisyphus is smiling. Boom!